I dare say, Holmes, I believe someone has left a note upon our door. Dear Mr. Holmes, please check today's Times. I think you will find something of interest. Signed, a friend.
Hello and welcome to the case of the two lions. Now, I believe I kind of have this sussed. There's still some niggling things. But anyway, let's make a start. The first, firstly, the articles that the intro video was referring to, I believe, are this one here. The two lions murdered in Hyde Park. But we do not know exactly where they come from. But if we look at an article on the same page, it says here, Roy slays wild African extravaganza. And it also mentions the lions and O'Neill, the great lion tamer. And on the next page, the main article mentions the death of Stephen Lyons just here. And one of the important factors is at the bottom. You can read these on a slightly better format. I have provided links to the newspapers on numerous occasions. I will try to include them again on this video. And there is another interesting article on this page, and that is the accident of Barry O'Neill, the lion tamer for Roy Slade's wild African extravaganza. And it informs us that he is actually incapacitated at the moment, so he is not able to perform his show. So, we still don't know a lot about this case, so I guess the best person to ask is Inspector Lestrade.
Oh, no. What do you want? I thought I was going to have a nice quiet day.
Somebody has asked us to check today's Times, and I was wondering if you'd be so kind as to tell me what you know about the mysterious deaths in the southeast.
There's nothing mysterious about it. The culprits are in custody at Old Bailey. The victim's body is at Bart's.
And what about the murdered lions?
What of them?
What did you find at the scene of the crime? Holmes wants me to record it precisely.
What did I find? Two lions shot a number of times, lying on top of one another. Wagon tracks leading away from the bodies. Footprints in the damp grass.
How many footprints, Inspector?
Oh, who knows? I believe there were two sets of boot prints, if you want to get specific. They entered and exited from the wagons. Now, will that do it for your Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson?
Nearly. And what became of the wagon? Surely Holmes will want to know that.
Abandoned in Archbishop's Park. I had a man drive it over to our central carriage stables, largely so that someone could look after the horses.
Any motives for the murder?
Unfortunately, I haven't a clue.
So 2 points we can take from here is that there were two boot prints that were walking away from the lions themselves, well, to the wagon, and the wagon is now at the central carriage stables. I mean, Lestrade did give us some other leads, but this is where we need to go next.
Did the dispatcher show you the wagon, Holmes?
Not only did he show it to me, it revealed some very interesting clues.
Oh, do tell.
The wagon housed a cage, which of course was no surprise. The door was wide open. I found that the padlock had been sprung, left to dangle on the ring bolt. Blood was smeared all over the stairs leading in and all over the floor inside.
Oh, how perfectly nauseating.
It was. But what interested me even more was what lay in the corner of the cage.
What was it?
Two large leather collars. Attached to the end of each collar was a leather pouch. Both pouches had been ripped open and emptied.
What do you suppose it adds up to?
Time will tell, Watson. Time will tell.
We have some crucial evidence now, and that is mainly that we know that the lions were killed in the wagon and the bodies were dragged out. The door was open and the lock was, well, the padlock was sprung. And the two collars with the pouches were emptied. So it's pretty evident that the lions were killed for what was on those in those pouches. We don't really have a lot to go on at the moment still, but we can visit Porky Shinwell at the Raven and Rat.
Don't know a thing about them jungle-type lions, but I might be able to help you out with Stephen Lyons.
How so, Shinwell? Did you know him?
Well, he came in here from time to time whenever his ship was in port. Friend of mine up at Pentonville knew his brother. Says the two of them were lockpickers of the ace variety. Anyways, just yesterday afternoon, Stephen Lyons comes in here with some red-headed fella. About an hour after Lyons left, in comes Derek Quinn, and he struts right over to this red-headed bloke.
Who might Derek Quinn be?
Don't know, sir. But I've never liked the looks of him, I haven't.
What about Thomas O'Neill? Do you know anything about him?
Don't believe I've ever met him. But from what I hear about the bloke, I'm surprised I didn't run into him in the slammer.
What have you heard?
It's only rumor, mind you. But he's suspected of every jewel theft from here to Timbuktu. And they says he'd two-time you in the wink of an eye if it'd line his pockets.
Again, we have some more crucial information. We've learned some more about Stephen Lyons being, well, he is an ace lockpicker, apparently. And he came in with a red-headed fellow. And I can speculate of who that person is, but we won't find any evidence towards that in this video. And the other name mentioned is Derek Quinn. Now, one problem I have with these original versions is that if we use Holmes's files, it drives our score up. So in this video, I already know about Derek Quinn, but obviously I can't use that information here, as we can't use that. We can't find that information here. We've also learned about Thomas O'Neill as well, and that he is a jewel thief, and he is a two-timer. Basically, he will rip people off for his own gain. Now, there is an article in the Times about Thomas O'Neill and... No, not this one. The Oldenburg jewels being stolen. Now, Thomas O'Neill apparently was in Oldenburg, and apparently we know he has a reputation as a jewel thief, but on this occasion the jewels weren't found on him, and that is quite convenient, as it could be the fact that he stole them but managed to find a way to hide them and smuggle them out the country. But anyway, now one problem I have now is this next part is that when we go to O'Neill's, Barry O'Neill is currently incapacitated, so he is not home, and there are several O'Neills here. Now, to find the relatives of Thomas O'Neill, we have to use Holmes's files, which means dragging our score slightly upwards. So for perfect score, I guess we just have to have a guess, maybe, as I can't see any information in the newspapers or anywhere else. But we need to visit Carol O'Neill now.
I was wondering if you could tell me anything about the death of your sons, Lyons.
Oh, I wish we could. You know, Barry has traveled all over the world, and to think it would happen right here in London.
You've traveled with him, haven't you, Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes, I did. For all 5 years of our marriage. But I must say I'm getting a bit weary of it. I mean, really, Mr. Holmes, it's no life for a married man to go traipsing all round the world.
Of course it isn't. He should settle down and raise a family. My husband, Carol, could get Barry a job down at Rogers and Singer. Before I die, it would be nice to have one of my boys right nearby.
Where is your other son?
Last we heard, Thomas was in Oldenburg, Germany.
Germany? Roy's late show just finished a tour of Germany, did it not?
Yes, it did.
Tell me, did you happen to see your brother-in-law while you were there?
I certainly did not. But my husband might have. I can't really say for sure. You see, we don't talk about Thomas much.
I don't mean to pry, but may I ask why?
Oh, it's nothing really. You see, years ago, Thomas loaned Barry some money when he was trying to put together his animal show. And now Thomas believes that Barry is forever in his debt.
So yes, the one point of contention is that I do not know at this point in time how to correctly link Carol O'Neill to Thomas or Barry. That's the score we need at the moment. So, we have learnt some more information, namely that Barry and Thomas are brothers, and Thomas was last seen in Oldenburg. We know that Barry's circus, well, Roy Slade's circus, was in Germany. Now, we have to assume that they were either in or nearby Oldenburg, as Sherlock Holmes points out whether they were in contact with Thomas while they were there, and Barry's wife can neither confirm nor deny that Barry and Thomas met. And we also found out that Thomas loaned Barry some money for his animal business, and he believes that Barry is now forever in his debt. Now, if these lions belong to Barry, being a lion tamer, he would be able to get very close to them. So he would be responsible for basically attaching these pouches to their necks. But he's now incapacitated, which happens the day before. So these pouches must have been important. And with Barry being incapacitated, no one could get close to them. Well, as far as I know. So to get these pouches, other means would have to have taken place. But we have visited all 4 locations. Now it's time to take it to the judge.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court stands in order. A pleasure to see you again. So it's the murder of the lions you're investigating, isn't it? Excellent. But first things first. Tell me, who murdered those unfortunate beasts? Remember, you're to choose either from your notebook or the directory.
Now, the assumption is that Thomas and Barry did meet up in Oldenburg. And if Barry did do Thomas a favour, he was not around to do this favour at the end of the trip. So we can only assume that Thomas wanted to retrieve this favour for himself.
Right you are. Now tell the court, why did Thomas O'Neill kill the lions?
It was not self-defense, as he would have had to enter the cage to begin with. And we can only assume that he hid the Oldenburg jewels with Barry. Barry put them on the lions, but because Barry can't get into the lion cage at the moment, Thomas wanted them back.
Good work. Now for Thomas O'Neill's accomplices. I am told that there are 2 other criminals involved in this case. Please inform the court as to their respective identities. Do remember, you can choose only one at a time. But don't worry, I will inform you if you make an inaccurate choice.
Again, we've already spoken about Barry O'Neill. And because Barry was incapacitated, Thomas O'Neill needed a way to get into the cages, well, the wagon. So the lions were killed in the wagon, and after the lions were killed, I believe that Barry probably is the only key holder, or one of the only key holders. The other probably would be Roy Slade, but anyway, that's something entirely different. So to get into the cage, the lock would need to be picked. And we know that Stephen Lyons is an ace lockpicker. And I believe the red-headed man was actually Thomas O'Neill. And if so, they definitely met up the night before.
It appears you've been doing your homework on this case. Now then, what role did Barry O'Neill play in the crime?
I'm not too sure whether driving a wagon he was already touring with is a crime, but he probably was the only person to attach these pouches safely around the lions' necks.
Quite so. Now tell us, what essential role did Stephen Lyons play in this crime?
I've kind of already answered this one. He was the lockpicker.
Excellent deduction. Now tell us, who murdered Stephen Lyons?
Again, the only real logical choice here is Thomas O'Neill.
Good show. But do tell the court just how Thomas O'Neill did the foul deed.
Now this is another point of contention where we know drugs were involved, but we've not had a chance to visit Sir Jasper Meeks for an autopsy. But the newspapers did report a drug. Is arsenic traceable? We have actually had a name crop up, which is Derek Quinn, and even though we can't actually view his description, I believe the red-headed man met up with Derek Quinn. So maybe he is involved somehow.
What a ruthless chap, that O'Neill. Seems to have all kinds of blood on his hands. Now tell me, why did he kill Stephen Lyons?
We know that Thomas O'Neill is a backstabber. He will two-time anyone for his own gain. And I believe that he would have offered Lyons some money, either for opening the locks, or maybe have offered him some money after he sold the jewels. I don't know, but we know that he would screw people over to basically gain, really. I'm guessing that also includes murder.
Double-crossed. Now there's a tale that Lyons didn't live to tell. Good show. You've done a most satisfactory job on this case. Court is recessed. Until the next time, of course.
An extremely difficult case, and your score is absolutely perfect. I'm quite sure we could not have done any better.
And there we have it, a perfect score. And I believe these original versions are going to be slightly more difficult. At least with the remastered versions, you could actually look at other people's files and get some more information and not have to worry about this score slowly dragging up. But anyway, this is how we solved the case, and it wasn't exactly perfect as such. I will let Holmes explain everything even more succinctly.
Right this way, Inspector.
I'm a busy man, Holmes. I don't have time to be traipsing about London at your beck and call. Now, why have you called me here?
To help you with this case.
Oh, yeah? How?
By solving the double murders of Lyons and Lyons.
You know who killed the beasts and the chap on St. George's Road?
Yes, and I think you'll be very interested in learning why the deed was done.
Go on, then. I'm listening.
As you must recall, Inspector, 5 months ago, Thomas O'Neill, a jewel thief, escaped a London police search.
We almost had him.
Almost apparently was not good enough. Less than 3 months later, he was detained in Germany in connection with the stolen jewels of the Duchess of Oldenburg. Although the theft was similar to O'Neill's style, they found no evidence to hold him.
What has all this to do with dead lions?
I was just coming to that, Inspector. At the same time as the Duchess's jewels disappeared, Roy Slade's Wild Animal Show finished its German tour. Barry O'Neill, brother of Thomas, happens to be the lion tamer for the troupe.
Could Thomas have used Barry O'Neill's lions to smuggle the jewels into London?
Excellent hypothesis, Watson. I see you are learning.
Oh, thank you, Holmes.
But where did he put the jewels? Behind the lion's back molars?
No need for anything as deep-seated as that. Leather collars with pouches did the trick.
But if the lion tamer put the pouches on, why did Thomas O'Neill have to kill the lions to get them off?
Oh, I know that one. Because Barry O'Neill was in hospital with 2 broken legs.
Right you are, Watson. And that's why Thomas had to solicit the help of Stephen Lyons. Without a key to the cage, he needed the services of an expert lockpicker like Lyons.
Then who killed Lyons?
Do you mean the animals or the man?
The man.
Thomas O'Neill, so that he wouldn't have to pay for the lockpicker's services.
You know, Holmes, the fracture that Barry O'Neill suffered would have mended in 4 weeks. If Thomas would have had some patience, he would have been able to get his jewels back without any complications.
Ah, yes, Watson. Patience is a virtue. Unfortunately, it seldom comes hand in hand with stealing and murder.
Having spoken with Barry O'Neill, I can't believe he'd be a party to the killing of his own lions.
I don't believe he was. That wasn't part of the original plan.
I've got to hand it to you, Holmes. You've done a fine job on a most difficult case.
Thank you, Inspector. But it really was elementary.
One more thing, Holmes.
Inspector?
We know in the case of Mr. Lyons' death that the murder weapon was poison. Wherever did Thomas O'Neill get it?
Derek Quinn, Vipers Unlimited.
I certainly am glad that this case is shut. But there is one thing that I'm not certain of.
Yes?
Who did leave the note on our doorstep in the first place?
Elementary. Mary O'Neill.
The lion tamer's missus?
I believe she'd had her fill of circus life and was ready to settle down. When she suspected Thomas O'Neill and her husband were involved in jewel thieving, she knew it was time to get out.
Holmes, you are simply amazing.
And there we have it. I will be back with the case of the pilfered paintings very soon. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.